Y'all know what the mass seed said when he grew up and became an adult? He said, gee, I'm a tree. Yeah, buddy. Okay, here we go. Find an equation for the perpendicular bisector of a line segment whose endpoints are at 4, 6 and 8, negative 6. So the first thing we're going to want to do here is we're going to find that midpoint formula. So we need to take our two x's, that's x1 and x2. Take our two y's, that's y1 and y2. And we're going to add them together and then divide by 2. So all that would look like is x1 plus x2 divided by 2. That'll give us our x value. And then we're going to take y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And that'll give us our coordinate that is a midpoint for the line segment that ends at 4, 6 and 8, negative 6. So let's plug our numbers in and play. x1, x2, y1, and y2. Let me grab an eraser and put those numbers in. So my x1 is 4, my x2 is 8, so 4 plus 8. y1 and y2, that's 6 plus negative 6. And then we do our work. 4 plus 8 is going to give me 12. 12 divided by 2 is going to give me 6. 6 plus negative 6 gives me 0, and 0 divided by 2 gives me 0. So 6, 0 is the midpoint. Okay, 6, 0 is our midpoint of this line segment. Now that we have our midpoint, we want to be able to find our slope. Let's find the slope of this line, and to make something perpendicular to that, we just need to find the opposite reciprocal. So, how do you find the slope of a point? That's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that will tell us how steep this line is, and then we'll have to do the opposite inverse, or excuse me, the opposite reciprocal of that slope to get a perpendicular line. So we're going back a year into Algebra 1 where we were taught about parallel and perpendicular lines and their slopes. So let's find the slope of this line. So that's going to be negative 6 minus 6 over 8 minus 4. Negative 6 minus 6 takes you to negative 12. 8 minus 4 is going to give you 4. So negative 3 is the slope of this line. So I'm just going to make a little mark and say slope is negative 3. So now, let's go back to the idea of what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to find the equation of a perpendicular bisector. So it has to split it right down the middle. So our line segment's midpoint is at 6, 0. So we have to go through 6, 0 in order for us to be a bisector, okay? In order for it to be perpendicular, it has to have a opposite reciprocal of negative 3. So the good news is I can take the opposite reciprocal. Negative 3 is really negative 3 over 1. The opposite reciprocal of that is flipping the numbers and turning it into a positive. So it's no longer negative, now it's positive, and the reciprocal means flip those values. So now we know, after doing that work, that we need to write an equation for a line that has a slope of 1/3 and goes through 0.60. Well, let's write it in. Y equals mx plus b, also known as slope-intercept form. Because right now what we have is we have our slope, and we have a random point that we can plug in for x and y. That will give us our b. All right, let's do the work. So my slope is 1/3. That's where m is. I'm going to multiply that by my x value of 6 plus an unknown value b is equal to 0. 1/3 times 6 gives me 6/3, which is really just a 2. 2 plus b equals 0. Take the 2 away, leaving you with negative 2 is what b needs to be. So now we have the two parts we need to write out our answer. A line that will perpendicularly bisect through this line segment would have to go through 6, 0 because that's the midpoint of this line segment, and also needs to have a slope of 1/3 because this line here has a slope of negative 3. Opposite reciprocals mean perpendicular lines. So our final answer is y equals 1/3 x minus 2. Study hard and good luck on your upcoming test.